Question 10a. Circle the two values that are less than a half. Well, a half can be represented in a few different ways. We can represent it as a fraction, 1 over 2. We could represent it as a decimal. A half of a whole number instead of 1 is 0.5. We can also represent it as a percentage, which is 50%, a half of 100%. Using these values, we can start to compare the others. So if you can't remember this, it's a good idea just to jot them down, write it down, it makes it easier to compare. Our first value is exactly 1 over 2. That's not less, so we can ignore it. 55% is bigger than 50%, so we ignore that one. 0.45 is going to be less than 0.5, whatever. It's the first decimal point is already smaller, so we know that this one must be smaller than 0.5. For 4 over 7, the trickiest bit here would be to try and make these equal. But if you look at the pattern, for a half, the bottom number should always be double the top number. In this situation, it's not. To be a half, this would have to be 4 over 8, so it's bigger than a half. Our last number, 30%, is less than 50%, so we know that this one must be less than a half as well. Question 10b. Circle the two values that are equal. When you compare fractions, decimals and percentages, it's a really good idea to have them all in the same format. I personally tend to choose decimals because I find it easier to try and convert them. A third is pretty tricky though, because 1 divided by 3 doesn't go exactly. It's a really useful one to memorize. It's 0.333 recurring. 20%, well, that's 0.2 or 0.20. We already have that one in decimal formats, that helps. 1 divided by 5. 1 over 5, that's going to be 0.20. So we already have our answer. But just to double check, 30% is 0.3. Ooh, this could be the same, but it's not, because it's 0.3 nothing. 0.30, which is not 0.33. So our two equal answers, 20%. 20 goes into 100 5 times. A fifth goes into a whole number 5 times, 0.20. Question 10c. Circle the fraction that is recurring when written as a decimal. Recurring, just like in question 10b, means it never finishes. It will always keep repeating the same pattern over and over and over again because it never works out as a whole value. To turn a fraction into a decimal, it's division. 1 divided by 2. 2's into 1, doesn't go, but it's a nice one we've already used. It's 0.5. 1 over 3, like I said in the previous question, is 0.3 recurring. So we already know that that one is, because if you tried to divide 1 by 3, 3's into 1 doesn't go, so we carry that over. 3's into 10 is 3, carry 1 over. 3's into 10 is 3, carry 1, and that shows that this will always keep going. 3/4. If we didn't remember what this was, again, top divided by the bottom, 3 divided by 4. How many 4's go into 3? None. So the 3 carries across. 4's into 30. That's going to be 7 with 2 left over, so that carries across to another 0. 4's into 20 is 5, 0.75. The final one, 3 over 2, we've actually come across earlier on in this paper. 3 divided by 2. If you can't do it in your head, write it down. 2's into 3 is 1, with 1 left over, so that carries across. 2's into 10 is 5, decimal point there, 1.5. It works out exactly. So there's only one of these which will never actually finish, and that was 1 over 3.